Hello and welcome to another edition of Lunch and Learn Wednesdays, courtesy of Venture Portland. My name is Jacob Falkenberg. I am the Communications and Member Services Director at Venture Portland. And today we're going to be talking about leadership skills and volunteer recognition. So the holidays are coming up. We're at the end of the year. And now is more important than ever to make sure that your volunteers feel seen, they feel recognized and appreciated. So we're going to be going over some strategies around that, as well as ways you as a leader can make the most of your position and be successful in your role. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. All right. Can everybody see that slide? Okay, great. So let's talk about how business district leadership is different than maybe a role that you might have as a leader at your small business. There's some key differences here. There's definitely some overlap, but things you want to keep in mind in your role as a leader at your association. So the first and foremost, you're dealing with volunteers as opposed to employees. So these people are your peers and they're donating their time, and they can choose to leave if they get frustrated or if they feel unfulfilled in their role. And now more than ever, it's hard to replace them. You know, finding good volunteers is really tough. So when you do find people who are a good fit for the organization, you want to hang on to them. The people you're working with also have a limited bandwidth. So members of associations are small business owners. Everyone's running their own business, and this is taking up a huge chunk of their time in addition to their family obligations and other obligations they might have. So they have a limited ability to be able to implement complex projects. They're going to need help from other board members. They're going to need guidance and leadership, and they're going to need to be put in roles where they feel comfortable and they have the skills to succeed. It's easy for them to feel like they're spread too thin or careen from crisis to crisis. And that's how you get into situations where people get burned out and leave. Business associations also have diffuse authority. So the responsibilities are spread amongst all the board members, but because you're working as part of a group with your peers, volunteers in that group might not naturally assume responsibility for tasks that need to be completed, and you might need to delegate tasks as the leader of the organization or as a leader of the organization. That might be something you have to do more so than in roles where there's clearly defined responsibilities. Also, remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Strengthening the economy of your district is complex, and what benefits one business might not help another. Your members are going to have different opinions of what a thriving district looks like based on the size of their business, based on what type of business they have. Everybody's going to have different opinions on what they think the association should be focusing on. And you want to make sure to make room and make space for people to share those opinions. But at the end of the day, you want to do what's best for the district as a whole. Also, turnover. This is a huge one for every association. Whenever you're dealing with volunteers, turnover is a regular part of being on the board. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. You know, as you have new people coming on, it helps your association evolve. You know, you're going to have people with new ideas, new energy, ways to keep things current and fresh. But you want to be prepared. You know, you want to always be seeking and recruiting and training new people. So when people inevitably do leave, you're not left shorthanded or with people who don't feel equipped to be successful. So, as a leader, how do you thrive in your association? Well, first and foremost, you want to lead through influence, not power. This is what we call the opposite of executive leadership. So, in a group of peers, you don't want to come up with a plan and direct others like you would at a business. You want to build coalitions, facilitate agreements, and inspire your group to want to participate. What's important to them, and what role can you put them in where they can feel fulfilled in that role? What do you think is important, and how can you convince people that to also think that those priorities are important? So think about influencing people, not just directing them what to do. You also want to think about developing a long-term district vision. So many business associations will have a work plan, which kind of dictates what they're going to be doing for over the course of the next year. And then every couple of years, districts will do strategic planning that focuses more on the long term, the 3 to 5 year, where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years? So as a leader, it is your role to make sure that these processes happen. So use your charisma and communication to convince the association that where you want to go in the next year is the best path. And then use your persistence and people skills to keep your association from getting sidetracked. So a lot of people might have pet projects that they want to do. Some people might go off on tangents on whatever is affecting the district at that time, or whatever they're specifically interested or frustrated by, or organizational amnesia, which is doing the same thing over and over again, just because it's familiar and easy, not because it's the most effective or the biggest priority for the district. And the work plan and the strategic plan really help to guide that and kind of is your roadmap for the next year and the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. As a leader, one of the most important things you have to do is delegate. You have to realize this vision through your volunteers. You can't do it all yourself, whether you're the president, the vice president, the treasurer, the head of a committee. You need the support of your fellow volunteers. Don't try and take it all on. You will burn yourself out, and it will not be a fulfilling experience for you. You want to share in the decision making, share in the leadership, empower others to kind of take a leadership role when need be, and take on those responsibilities as a board. It should never be one person handling everything. Another thing you're going to deal with as a leader is conflicts. So anytime you get a diverse group of people in the same room together, you're inevitably going to have conflicts and periods of low morale. And part of your job as a leader is to manage that conflict. How can you carve out compromises? Whereas, if someone wants something, but that might necessarily not be what everybody else wants, how can they still feel like they're being heard? And how can you keep them in the fold? Because if people feel like they're not being heard, or if their priorities aren't being met, they're going to leave. And as I said before, filling those vacant volunteer roles are really difficult. It's harder now than ever to recruit good volunteers. So make sure that you're squashing conflicts when they first start, and making sure you're kind of the mediator, and no one is feeling left out. So you want to hone your facilitation skills, your conflict resolution skills, and your relationship building skills. It's always a great idea to take a conflict resolution workshop, because I think that's one thing that a lot of people struggle with, is developing those skills. Those are never easy conversations to have. So delving into that as a part of your professional development is really going to make your job easier, and it's going to make it easier to retain your volunteers. Okay, next slide. You are also the guardian of your association's culture. So whether or not you realize it, every organization has a culture, and it's basically a set of internal behaviors that dictate how you get things done. Some are more performance and results-based. Some are more relationship-based and developing of the individuals that are a part of that organization. But as a leader, you want to strive for a culture that's characterized by trust, integrity, cooperation, passion, continuous achievement, and camaraderie. These are all qualities of successful organizations. So you want to make sure that these are a focus of when you're in a meeting or any sort of communication you're having with each other. Make sure that these are taken into consideration with every meeting you might have with your fellow board members. It's also important to be tenacious. So inevitably, problems will arise, things won't go as planned, but it's important for you to right the ship and keep at it, and don't get derailed by minor issues that might come up. There's no substitute for persistence, especially if you're trying something new for the first time. It might not be as successful as you hoped, but it's your job as a leader to identify, is there promise or potential in what we're doing? Can it be improved? Not just giving up and moving on to the next thing, but really identifying what could have the highest impact for your district and adjusting to make sure that that's successful. Okay, let's talk a little bit about leadership skills. So there's about 8 primary leadership skills. And as we're going through these, I want you to think about skills that you've already developed that you feel confident in, and then skills here that might need some more improvement, because not everybody has all of these, but it's important for leaders to focus on trying to develop most of these. So one of the most important things is shaping solutions for your district. So that is a leader's ability to take a problem and identify ways to solve that problem. Problem-solving skills, essentially. Other leadership skills involve building relationships and engaging others. This is another big one, is how can you get people to join as volunteers in the organization? And then how can you learn about those folks to a point where you feel that you can delegate tasks that they will excel at and feel fulfilled in? So what's important to them? How can they feel engaged? How can they feel that their ideas are being heard? Facilitating group action is also very important. So that's, once you've got an idea for fixing a problem, what's the plan? How is that going to happen? Who's going to do it? Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be involved? What's the timeline look like? What are the steps involved? So really that logical organization of making something happen. Also helping others lead, coaching and mentoring. So as a leader, as we said before, you can't do it all yourself. Sometimes other people need to be empowered to be leaders. So that sometimes involves reaching out to someone directly and saying that they would be good for a leadership role, and here's why, based on their skill set or background. Offering coaching to help them gain the confidence to feel like they want to be in a leadership role, and mentoring, which is kind of a part of your succession plan, right? So as a leader, you can't be in that role forever. Having kind of a leadership pipeline where you can identify your successor, bring them in early, and then start to mentor them and give them a chance to shadow you before they step into that role. So they feel confident in taking over that role, and they feel like they have the ability to do the job successfully. Other leadership skills involve managing conflict, as we discussed. Conflict resolution is a huge part of it. Managing projects. So once things are going along, making sure that they're on the right timeline, that you're hitting your benchmarks, that they're heading in the right direction. So really monitoring those projects to make sure that they're on track. Establishing a thriving culture, as we said, and emotional intelligence. So this is, your ability to identify people and if they're feeling fulfilled in the role, they're happy, they're feeling overwhelmed. What's the emotional kind of temperature of each person on the board, and how can you help to make them feel like if there is a problem, how can you kind of steer them in the right direction to make them feel better, where they're not overwhelmed and they want to stay involved? So there's 4 different leadership types: the advocate, the convener, the strategist, the facilitator, and the champion. That's actually 5. 5 different leadership types. Which one are you? And as we go through this list, kind of identify who you are, and then start thinking about other people on the board that might be able to fill the other roles, because a successful board has multiple types of leadership types. Different situations call for different leadership types, and it's great to have people in your corner who can kind of step in when they're needed. So the first leadership type is the advocate. So this is the person that raises issues, they create a sense of urgency, they beat the drum. These are people who are identifying things that need to happen and really rallying the board to get a plan in motion to take care of those issues. The convener, those are people who find allies and partnerships. So you want to find other like-minded organizations that you can partner with, whether they're in your district or other parts of the city. What are ways that you can partner to make your life easier as an organization? Who can kind of help you fulfill your goals as an organization and provide you with resources that will make you successful? So it's a lot about building relationship with other organizations, building relationships with potential board members and potential leaders, getting the right people in the room together to make things happen. You've also got the strategist. So the strategist figures out what needs to happen and how to get it done. So really that more analytical thinking type person who's going to figure out all the different parts of a plan, and then who in the room can be involved to get it done. Sometimes this calls for creative thinking and different options. You know, when a plan doesn't necessarily go the way you're hoping, having a backup plan or a plan B where you can shift gears, still accomplish what you want to do with what you've got, but it might not necessarily be with the original plan. So someone who can kind of think on the run and is adaptable when unexpected issues come up. Then you've got the facilitator. So that's the person who's helping the group make decisions, you know, running the board meetings, running the committee meetings, you know, making the most of everybody's time to make sure that the most important decisions get made. This also determines who will do what and when, and negotiates. So part of being the facilitator is, you know, someone might not want to do one part of a role, but they might want to do another. So finding someone else to kind of fill in to make sure that everything gets done that needs to get done. So, you know, kind of, again, that creative thinking to kind of facilitate things successfully. And then finally, your champion. That's the person who makes sure things get successfully pushed over the finish line. They're the project manager, the people manager, kind of staying on task, monitoring, tracking, nudging, reminding. You know, this might seem like you might be overbearing or annoying, but there's always got to be a champion to remind people, especially when you're dealing with volunteers who have limited bandwidth. You know, they might be distracted, they might have other priorities that come up. Being able to recognize when someone's not able to do what they might have initially committed to, approaching them to see if there's a workaround, and then finding someone else if they're unable to kind of complete that work. Again, it comes down to beating the drum, you know, really making sure people are on task, projects are on track, and priorities are being fulfilled. So keeping that work plan handy to make sure that you're hitting your benchmarks each month of what you wanted to accomplish when you set out to do. So another part of strong leadership is active listening. So just as much as it's important to delegate and to kind of convene and communicate with people, um, listening is another huge part of it. You know, people want to feel like they're being heard, and there's specific ways you can do that. Um, Number one is by eliminating distractions and using body language that shows that you're listening. So, you know, making eye contact, nodding, making sure that you're facing the person. Body language is huge when helping people feel like they're being heard. Also, summarizing. So, rephrasing important parts of what they said to show that you understood. So, that's, just kind of repeating the key points that they're making. Also, being conscious of what they're doing. So, identifying their emotions or mannerisms via observations. So, that could be like, I see like you're biting your lip. That might mean that you're worried and you might not meet your timeline. Really showing the other person that you're paying attention to not only what they're saying, but how they're acting. But you also want to check for accuracy, because how someone is acting might not necessarily be how you're interpreting it. So if you are asking questions like this, always follow it up with, is that right? Or did I miss anything important? Just so you can make sure that you're not assuming incorrectly what their reaction is. And then finally, consider how to resolve. So sometimes someone just needs an ear to listen. They don't necessarily need someone to solve a problem for them. They might not even need advice. Really, you want to just be there first, to be someone to listen, and then ask them what they need from you. And even then, you might not be able to solve their problem. They might have to do it on their own, which is completely fine. But the fact that you were there to help them kind of get it off their chest is sometimes one of the most beneficial things that you can do. All right, let's talk a little bit about some of the lesser fun things about being a leader in your district. Is delivering these difficult messages, having these difficult conversations that are inevitable, that need to happen. And they need to happen really early on when someone is being problematic, or someone needs to be told something that's uncomfortable. It's best to do this at the very beginning, before it becomes a huge problem, before people start leaving as a result of someone else's behavior. So first and foremost, when delivering a difficult message, keep calm. So you want to keep your voice and your body language neutral, regardless of how upset you or the other person might be. A professional tone helps to diffuse emotion. They're going to match your energy, right? So you want to make sure that you're presenting your message in a calm demeanor. As a leader of association, it's important for people to recognize that if you are delivering a difficult message, it's not personal, right? This is a message that's coming from the board as a whole, not from your own personal feelings. So focus on observable behavior, not your interpretations or feelings. It's not about how you feel as the leader. It's about what's good or bad for the district. So, if you're approaching someone about a problem, it's not a problem you personally have with them. It's a problem that is making it difficult for the district to be successful. You also want to be direct. So don't beat around the bush. This is a conversation about something that needs to change, and directness gives it more impact. Make sure that you're clear, you're concise, you're not kind of rambling or trying to sugarcoat anything, but really make sure that the message is clear and direct. And then don't forget the positive, right? With every difficult message you deliver, hopefully in a healthy culture, there's even more positive recognition going on too. And the same process goes for giving people compliments in these conversations. It makes compliments stick far more than the quick "great job," whereas you can identify specific things that people did well that you want to give them a compliment for. Okay, so let's talk specifically about volunteering and volunteer recognition. Because as a leader, part of your role is to lead volunteer recognition and make sure your volunteers are feeling like they're fulfilled in their role and they're comfortable in their role and they have all the resources and tools they need to succeed. So you've got 3 different volunteer types, and recognition for each different type is a little bit different. You've got your one-time volunteers who might, help out with a single event or meeting. You've got your short-term skill-specific volunteers. These are people who are maybe on a specific committee. They have a specific skill set that would help them be successful for a project that the association is working on. And then you've got your longer-term committed volunteer leaders, people that have been involved with the association for multiple years. They serve on the board either in an officer role or other leadership role. So, thanking volunteers. I know this probably seems obvious, but one of the most important things you can do is just simply saying thank you. A verbal thank you goes a long way after someone has done something that deserves recognition. You can also give out rewards, incentives, or organize events that celebrate and show off the team's efforts. So a little healthy competition to get people excited about, anything you might be doing, whether it's a membership campaign or recruiting vendors for an event, that sort of thing. And then, carving out time specifically to celebrate successes. So whether that's at the end of a board meeting or, a social hour separate from your regular meetings to really address a team's effort. Recognition and appreciation help those volunteers feel validated in their work. It's one thing to be successful at a project, but it's another thing when other people are telling you that they appreciate the work that you did, that they're so happy that the project was successful, that sort of thing. You want to celebrate accomplishments. So show off your volunteers' hard work, whether that's be recognizing them in a board meeting or highlighting them in a social media post or a newsletter or on the website. Highlight those results and achievements. So it's really important for you to be tracking those results and showing and quantifying the results of your different programs. So you can easily point at growth over time. You want your programs and events to feel like they're improving each year. If you're doing something year over year, how can you show that they're being successful? Well, if you have tracking mechanisms in place, you can kind of track those numbers year over year, show that growth, and it shows that it's worth investing in for the next year. You also want to recognize volunteers. So as I said, use social media to share photos of volunteers in action, offer individual recognition at events, meetings, or in emails. And then remember, different people prefer to be praised in different ways. So some people really appreciate public recognition. Some people more appreciate to be recognized privately. But I think everybody at some point at least wants to be told that they did a good job, that you appreciate the time that they spent, whether or not the thing that they did was as successful as you had hoped. It's really important, especially this time of year, at the end of the year, to carve out time to do that. And again, appreciate the person, not just their work. Just showing up, being themselves, caring, being engaged, a lot of the times that in itself deserves recognition. So even if there's not a huge event that just wrapped up, or there's not huge growth in membership, or a new website that just launched, or whatever it might be, every month, take time to carve out time to appreciate the people who are making the association run, essentially. So build gratitude into your meeting culture. A lot of times, that's just taking 5 minutes at the beginning of the end or the end of each meeting to go around the room and invite your team members to express gratitude or pride for something in their district. And I think it gets people. It's too easy for people to focus on the negative, whereas there's a lot of positive that comes out of this work that you're all doing. And taking time to really focus on that positive, what did we accomplish last week or last month, even if it's something as simple as, we got a new member, or, we cleaned up this block, or whatever it might be. Make sure everybody's aware of it, and that kind of helps to keep the morale up in the room, which is super important for retention. As a leader, it's important to show that you care. So, you want to create teams to help with larger projects on heavier lifts. Many hands make for light work. As a leader, you want to really recognize if someone's been assigned a task and it might seem like too much for them, go ahead and take a step back, identify other people that can kind of help, and build a team to make sure that project gets done. That helps you avoid burnout and shows that you have compassion. You're paying attention to people and what their level of their capacity might be for volunteering, and make an effort to lighten their load when needed. You also want to encourage the sharing of ideas, suggestions, and feedback. A lot of the times people can get siloed in their leadership roles, where they're just delegating. They have a plan in their head of what they want to be done and how it should be done. But really, there should always be this open dialogue of sharing of ideas. And a lot of times it's helpful to establish a way of collecting anonymous feedback regularly to gauge their satisfaction, because people won't always feel comfortable sharing things in a group setting. So this could be in the form of an online survey, or Dropbox, or a Google form, that sort of thing, or even the old school paper boxes where people can kind of write their comments on little cards and put those in there. But it's incredibly important to get that unbiased, honest feedback, so you as a leader can kind of adapt to what their concerns might be. Okay. Finally, let's talk about different ways to recognize volunteers. So I'm going to go through this list. It's a pretty long list, but as we're going through it together, I want you to choose 5 recognition actions that you're going to take in the next 6 months to show a little love to your volunteers. And as we go through, you'll see that these kind of vary in terms of the amount of time or the amount of energy that they might take. Some of them are very, very simple verbal recognition. Some of them take a little bit more engagement to happen. But think about what you've got coming up in the next 6 months, or what you just accomplished recently. And these are some ideas for kind of showing love to your volunteers and recognition to your volunteers. So first one, say thank you at a board meeting. Say thank you in a newsletter. Provide treats at meetings. So these are food, drink, sweets. That's always appreciated, especially if you've got early morning meetings or late night meetings. Help people feel comfortable. Send thank you cards. So these could be to your board members, to donors, to members, to volunteers. Snail mail is it's sometimes it's nice to get. Sometimes it's getting some inundated with emails these days. Getting a handwritten thank you card makes a big difference for some folks. Maybe you want to profile a volunteer on your website or in your newsletter. So picking someone who has done something above and beyond, and talking a little bit about them, a little bit about their business, giving them a little special recognition for what they have done. You can also recognize volunteers at the annual meeting. I know Venture Portland every year, when we have our board members who are leaving the board, we do a special salute to them during the meeting. So, with some flowers or a nice bottle of wine or something like that. You can host a volunteer recognition event. So that could be a breakfast coffee or a happy hour, just a casual thing for folks to kind of get together and really take time away from worrying about the business of the organization and really just focusing on the individuals. You can also toast volunteers. So again, that's a simple toast at a meeting or event with champagne or sparkling cider or something like that. Present board service certificates at the annual meeting, share district accomplishments at the board meeting. So again, the importance of tracking those numbers. So, things kind of take a long time sometimes to get done, and people can kind of lose track. So always reminding people of the accomplishments that the association is doing, even if they're very little. A little accomplishment goes a long way in keeping morale up. Other ways to recognize volunteers. You can share the district accomplishments through your newsletter, share district accomplishments through your website, tracking your volunteer hours and creating an award for someone who reaches a certain milestone of hours. Creating awards in your district, people who have the most volunteers hours, the most thankless task, right? Someone who stepped up to do something that wasn't super pleasant but needed to get done. Celebrate seasonally. So this could be, around the holidays, like, what we're talking about right now, but also think about those shoulder seasons, Valentine's Day. What about Small Business Week? How can you kind of keep people motivated through parts of the year that there might not be a whole lot of exciting things happening? Take a minute to share the proudest accomplishment annually. Looking back on the past year, what's the thing we're most proud of? Assess burnout and satisfaction. And that's something you can do quarterly. And I'm going to send a follow-up email after the presentation with a little survey you can give to your board members to help you assess their burnout and satisfaction as a board member, because it's not always apparent. People aren't always vocalizing these things. They're not always comfortable sharing these things in a group setting. So having a survey where they can kind of do it independently is going to help you as a leader gauge, all right, who's kind of on the fence, who's not super happy in their role, and you can reach out to them directly to see ways that their role could be improved. Also, schedule fun. Put it on the agenda. At the beginning of the meeting, start off with a lighthearted icebreaker or some sort of networking game, something like that. You could schedule an annual retreat. There's plenty of fun stuff to do all over the city. It doesn't necessarily have to be business related, but just an excuse for everybody to get together and have fun. And then use introductions to highlight pride and thanks. So again, this is kind of building this into your meetings when people are introducing themselves. My name is blank, and I'm thankful for blank. And that really keeps things on a positive note and helps to kind of show what everybody else is thankful for. What are they excited about? And if there's kind of a trend that comes up around that, maybe that's what you want to focus on in the coming year. The things that get people excited, the things that people feel are beneficial to the district. Okay, so I've been talking for a very long time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up to conversation, questions. I know we got a small group here, So we might end a little bit early, but I wanted to see if anybody wanted to share any experiences they've had with volunteer recognition, any challenges they've had as in a leadership role, or any ideas they had for, volunteer retention. Do any of the things that we covered kind of resonate with anybody? Yeah, Laura.
One of the things that we started doing is providing like props for people to take pictures, like those silly props that say party or whatever. And it seems to be like a really good icebreaker. And I just got them for like $2.49 at, you know, I want to say they were like a Dollar Tree or something, and just have a box of these. And it's like, hey, we're going to give you this prize for, attending the most meetings or being engaged. And it seems to work because we're now that we're having more people attending our meetings, it's like you see people are coming, but you can't just sit there. You have to engage because we need to really build our volunteer base. And they need to see that we're not just about business, that, we could be fun too. And so it was a $2.50 investment to have these and say, and take a picture with your new friend over here in the corner. And it seemed to help.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's an easy way to build fun into a meeting.
Right.
It might be a little dry, you might be doing talking about things that aren't necessarily the most exciting. So, yeah, ways you can kind of build that into the beginning or the end of the meeting. Take a few photos to give you some content for your
Mhm.
social media,
Yep.
and also recognize board members at the same time. Sometimes a Instagram post of board members doing something silly is a great way to not only raise awareness for your organization and volunteer opportunities, but to recognize the people that have been doing that work already.
Right. And then the last one, the last meeting that we had was a speed networking event that we did the collab with East PDX Chamber of Commerce. And that really was good because of the way that it was set up. And it's like, okay, now move to the next table. So the board really got engaged with other people and talked to them about, what are you doing in your organization? And so it just inviting people that aren't necessarily members yet really seemed to help, and hearing their struggles. And it was a really good event um, for us to, before we even got to that point, I just sent out an email to the board saying, okay, this company is going to be there, this company is going to be there, and, come with a question sort of as an icebreaker. And that seemed to help.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially when you're looking at recruiting volunteers, sometimes they just need a little incentive to kind of dip their toe into the pool. So inviting someone, yeah, who might not necessarily be a board member, but giving them a chance to kind of see what it's all about and kind of raise concerns that they might have is a great way to engage. Hosting your meetings at different businesses, even if they might not even be a member, to kind of give them an idea of what you're doing, is a great way to engage with non-members. But yeah, being conscious of kind of mixing it up. Rewarding the people that have been doing the work, maybe by hosting it at their business, and then maybe every third or fourth meeting, picking a new member to kind of keep that leadership pipeline moving, to kind of keep that volunteer recruitment moving. Because, yeah, as we said, it's super important to always be getting new ideas and new energy into the fold as people kind of cycle in and out. Does anybody else have any questions or comments, things they wanted to share before we wrap it up?
Um, I would, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. I'm kind of new in the president role over here on Williams, and I'm finding that I kind of feel like that some of the structure is missing with trying to get volunteers. So I'm kind of in the process of creating almost like a job description, but just some parameters, because my feeling is that, we want to capture volunteers' enthusiasm and commitment and special skill set or interest or whatever it is that they're bringing. But, you know, we really want it to kind of fit into the needs of what the district needs. You know, so you know, and it's also, I feel like it will be an easier way for me to be accountable with what they're doing and what they're not. So having some kind of a structure. Do you have anything like that so I don't have to create it, or and does
Yeah,
the
yeah,
chair
we,
have
we
it?
we definitely have, we call it like a job description for being a board member, but it really just outlines the different responsibilities, you know, what they're going to be expected to do, what the time commitment is, that sort of thing.
Yeah, not necessarily even the board, but just like volunteers in general,
Yeah,
kind of per project, you know, so that again, I can kind of like go out and be like, oh, you know, we have this need and here's, you know, a kind of a general outline and, you know, what we're kind of looking for in your commitment, you know, something like that. You know, I mean, I can create all of that stuff. I just was wondering if you had anything I could kind of like start with or go with.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. I can definitely send you a template or two. You know, that sounds more like, yeah, someone who wanted to be on a committee for a specific
yeah,
event or promotion or something that's
yeah,
happening. Someone that
yeah.
might necessarily not want to have dedicate the time to being on the board, but maybe has a specific interest in helping out with, you know, something that's going to be happening once coming up.
Right, or even just a, you know, a few times or something so that I can kind of like have more people doing a few things here and there. You know what I mean? I just feel like that we're kind of still a little bit of a skeleton. We need more people, you know, but you know, nobody has like a ton of time. So I want to try to kind of think of it as per task, you know, per event or per whatever to try to kind of like appeal to their particular, you know, they got this great skill. Let's try to bring it in and get them excited about using that skill for this particular task.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. You know, identifying, you know, what are they personally interested in,
Mhm.
or what skills do they have that would be a benefit to something that you want to do, and then yeah, specifically placing them in that role, rather than them trying to figure it out for themselves, trying to identify, you know, what
Yeah,
would make them
exactly. And
happy.
giving them some accountability, some responsibility, and then also that'll be a really clear direction on being able to give them a reward so that again, we can kind of keep on, you know, another task, another reward. Maybe we can turn them into a board member.
Definitely, yeah. Start small with a, you know, minimal commitment, but something that, yeah, that you know that they're interested in, and then that usually that can turn into something bigger over time once they kind of gain confidence and learn what, you know, you're all
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. And just be excited about working with whoever and the project and all that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
we didn't talk a ton about board recruitment. We that's another conversation that we can have another time. But yeah, I think it's super important to be doing that throughout the year. You know, not just, you know, one people's board roles are kind of ending, but yeah, really thinking about that continuous recruitment,
Right.
and not just leaving it for one person, but thinking about, okay, what connections does each person on the board have based on the industry that they're in or where they're at, you know, who's on their block,
Mhm.
that sort of thing, who already has, you know, similarities with people who aren't involved,
Mhm.
that might have an easier time engaging them because of who they
Right.
are, what they do.
Right. Right. Cool. Yeah, that'd be great. Do you want me to put my email in the chat thing for you?
Yeah, go ahead and drop it in there. I think I should have it if you've RSVP'd,
Yeah.
but I'll make sure that you're included in the follow-up email that has some of the resources that we discussed, and you know, we can keep that line of communication open if you have, you know, additional questions and stuff.
Sounds good. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you all for taking the time. And certainly, when you do get the follow-up email, feel free to share that info with anybody that couldn't make it today. I know this time of year is super busy for everybody with the holidays coming up, but this is important stuff for all board members and everybody involved with the association to know. So if there's anything else we can provide, certainly let us know. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Take care.
Mhm.